For the past 5 years, I involved myself in a business that really brought joy to me because I felt that I was being of value to other people and helping them find some alignment in things that they were looking for. But it wasn't progressing, and it seemed to get to the point where I felt that I was trying too hard. I was efforting most of the time to try to make
Which
things
explains
happen.
why it wasn't moving for you the way you wanted it
and so
to.
I did try to make that seem to...
It's hard to take score and not be affected by the outcome of the score, and therefore affect what comes next and what comes next. Not easy to stay optimistic when those around you aren't, but you can.
Yeah, so I decided to put it up on a shelf for a little while and see how I would feel by letting go of it and just saying, well, maybe...
Was it a relief to let go?
There was a relief. There was a relief,
Well, a relief,
although it was something I enjoyed doing.
Well, a relief is an indication that it isn't an indication that the business was right or wrong. It's an indication that the way you were thinking about it had some split energy going on within you. And when you made a decision and felt relief, then the split energy subsided.
Yeah.
That's the path of least resistance.
Yes. So I'm not sure if I should just completely let it go.
This is the thing that we really want you to hear, and we appreciate the clarity of your question so much. You cannot make a decision about what's the best thing for you to do from a place of concern or worry. Because when you're concerned or worried, you're not in sync with broader perspective, and you don't have an expansive enough view to consider things. You got to be tuned in, tapped in, turned on before source energy that is always flowing can be heard by you. So humans, so often, and it's all right, you make your decisions based upon pros and cons and pluses and minuses. You try to be objective and use statistics and that sort of thing. And we want you to understand that there is no real way for you to know whether you are making the decision which is in harmony with what you really want when you are making a decision from your awareness of what is going wrong. You just can't do it. So it's a good idea to set it aside for a little while. It's a good idea to step back from it and see how you feel about it. But what you really want to do is, if you can get enough distance between you and whatever the subject is, and you can get tuned in because this thought feels good, and get tuned in because you're enjoying this part of your life, and get tuned in because you're meditating and allowing your vibration to rise, and get tuned in because this music is lovely and this conversation is uplifting, and that is a beautiful thing to behold, and this walk feels really good to your physical body, so that you're choosing a stream of things, a continuum of things that feel so good to you that you are, for a period of time, mostly tuned in, tapped in, turned on. And then once that happens, impulses come to you. Impulses about where to go, not impulses about where not to go. Impulses about where to go. There is so much that is in your vortex that is calling you, that is calling you, that is calling you. And when you look at a condition that makes you feel an aversion, it doesn't mean that that calling is stopped. It means that you're out of the range of the calling, because the calling to what you want never stops. That's an important thing. That's the most important thing that this conversation has brought forward. The calling from your source, the call of your vortex, never stops. And if you can't hear it, it's not because your vortex is not calling. It's because you're tuned to a frequency where you just can't hear it. Because your inner being always knows where you want to be in relationship to where you are, and is always calling you to the path of least resistance. Well, the path of least resistance might very well be to put that business on the shelf, so to speak. That could be the path of least resistance, but you don't know it until you allow yourself to really feel what the calling is. We want you to think in terms of, this will serve you so well. What am I being called to? Not what am I being averted from? What am I being called to? What am I being called to? What am I being called to? Be solution oriented. Be forward looking, you see. And that's a lot to ask of most humans who've been operating very differently from that. But that's the way the universe works. That's the way your relationship with your inner being is. It's not the relationship you had with your mother. It's not the relationship you have with most people. It's not the relationship that most humans have with each other, but it is the relationship that you have with your inner being. And it's important to make that adjustment, because otherwise it's, as you said, I can't tell. I can't tell what I'm supposed to do. Well, if you can't tell, you're not lined up. If you don't feel sure, you're not lined up. Sometimes you feel sure enough to ask a question, and when the answer comes, then you feel more sure. Then the decision comes into focus. Nothing is ever done. It's just a decision, and then a decision, and then a decision, and then a decision, because no creation is ever complete. It's just, what now? What now? What next? What next? Don't ever be hard on yourself for feeling like you want to take a moment to consider something. Consideration and deliberate creation are the same thing. They're one in the same thing. So if something strikes you as something that is bothering you a little bit, it's wonderful. It's appropriate to consider it, because in asking the question, the universe will bring you the opportunity to hear the answer that takes you to the next place and the next place. And there are no wrong across the board or right across the board answers to anything. It's an individually catered, tailored, especially to you, you see. Your inner being knows you and adores you and is speaking to you, and your only work is to keep yourself feeling good enough that you can hear it.
And that's what I intend to do.